Hey everyone, it's Argonaut here from The Right Way, and I got a follow-up video about something that happened in New Zealand. Was it last year? I think it was probably last year sometime. And it's basically a witch hunt against people that were standing up for science by scientists who were decidedly anti-science. Confused? Well, so basically what's happened in New Zealand, if you're not from New Zealand, and this could be happening in other places around the world as well, is that we have an indigenous population here, the Maori population, and they have this thing called Matauranga Maori, which is their Maori knowledge. And the idiot Ministry of Education in New Zealand, being run by the woke left-wing Labour Party here, has come up with the brilliant idea that Matauranga Maori should be given the same weighting as European science. Physics, biology, chemistry, mathematics, computer science. Matauranga Maori should be given exactly the same weighting. Now, Matauranga Maori, some parts of the combined Maori knowledge about how things work and stuff, is I'm sure there are some scientific principles in there, but not everything is based on scientific principle. Not everything has been peer reviewed. Not everything has been double checked. All that kind of stuff that you actually do in proper science. And so giving it the same weighting as in school, teaching students with the same weighting Matauranga Maori as science in schools is just absolutely ridiculous, right? And of course, some academics wrote a letter to one of the what is it, a monthly newspaper kind of thing, and explaining why they didn't think that it should be, very reason why it shouldn't be given on the same status as physics, biology, and so on. They didn't denigrate Matauranga Maori. They said it was very important for the cultural perspectives of the indigenous population, but it wasn't science and shouldn't be classed as science. And of course, 2,000 stupid academics in New Zealand wrote an open letter denouncing these people and saying that there should be an investigation. And of course, these people were part of the Royal Society of New Zealand, which is a scientific society set to enhance science wherever it may be, in this case in New Zealand. And of course there they started a basic witch hunt to try and get rid of these people that stood up for science, which is what the society should be doing, and only because they're trying to conform to the woke left-wing ideology which has infested academia and the political scene in New Zealand. So it's been dropped. So Graham Adams wrote, so again, props to Graham Adams, who's the writer for this article and did all the research and so on. I'm just reading and giving my opinions. So Graham Adams, the Royal Society has dropped its disciplinary action against two eminent fellows after a barrage of international outrage. So yeah, a lot of scientific people in overseas came out on side of these two people and against all the woke left-wing academics in New Zealand, because the people in New Zealand are too scared to do anything, because again the left controls the narrative in New Zealand just like they do in the US and other Western countries. It had little choice if it wanted to avoid further embarrassment. So hot on the heels of a blistering ruling by the Media Council that Dr. Susie Wiles made a damaging and untrue statement in a Stuff column about the 7 listener professors, the Royal Society, I'm not going to pronounce the next name, has now formally decided not to proceed with a complaint against the two of them. The Society investigated a disciplinary process last November into 3 fellows of the Society, Professor Robert Nola, Garth Cooper, and Michael Corballis. And unfortunately, Michael Corballis passed away during that time, after receiving complaints about their signing a letter to the listener in July last year. The letter defended science and declared that while Matauranga Maori is critical for the preservation and perpetuation of culture and local practices and plays key roles in management and policy, it is not science. So they weren't denigrating it at all. They're just saying it's not science. Consequently, it did not warrant being included in the NCEA science syllabus on what would effectively be an equal footing with physics, biology, and chemistry. So, are we going to teach people stuff non-science, our kids, and then further put back New Zealand's scientific standing in the world? It's absolutely ridiculous. In a brief summary of its disciplinary investigation published on Friday, the Royal Society acknowledged the importance of the issues the professors had raised, but said it was beyond the scope of its panel to discuss or assess their merits. So they're just taking the easy way out and not actually coming in behind these people. They are absolutely gutless, the Royal Society. It described the complaints as referring in particular to the vulnerability of Maori and early career researchers. It also made it clear that in any early version of its statement, there was no evidence that the fellows acted with any intent of dishonesty or lack of integrity. Then why did you start the witch hunt, Royal Society, then? Oddly, that sentence doesn't appear in the version now published online. Of course, it has been obvious to interested observers for some time that the Society had little choice but to get the monkey of the investigation off its back one way or another. When its investigation was announced, it was met with international uproar, including some of the world's most celebrated scientists, most notably Richard Dawkins, Steven Pinker, and Jerry Coyne. Dawkins wrote a stinging letter to the Society criticising his action, which he tweeted to his 2.9 million followers. I bet that got the Royal Society's attention. He noted the frankly appalling failure of the Royal Society of New Zealand to stand up for science, which is after all what your society exists to do. If the New Zealand Royal Society won't stand up for true science, who will? Absolutely right, Richard Dawkins. Prominent journalists in the UK, including Rod Liddle and Toby Young, waded into the debate too. Liddle's article for the Sunday Times was headed, "We're screeching into a new dark age and bad scientists are leading the charge," calling all those academics in New Zealand bad scientists. Oh, that's gold. Liddle wrote, "All of those academics at Royal Society know full well that Maori explanation for the creation of the world is not correct, and yet hypocritically and patronisingly they pretend otherwise." That's right, Mataranga Maori has aspects of creationism in it. They don't teach the Bible in science classes, do they? Because it's creationism. So why are you teaching Mataranga Maori then? More than once, the Royal Society of New Zealand has been warned publicly that it would become an international joke if it expelled the professors. Emeritus Professor of Evolutionary Biology at the University of Chicago, Jerry Coyne, also pointed out that Mataranga Maori contains strong elements of creationism, refuted by all the facts of biology, paleontology, embryology, and biogeography. And that expelling members for defending views like evolution against non-empirically based views of creation and the like is absolutely shameful. It's disgusting. New Zealand is a laughing stock. He concluded his letter to the Society with, "I hope you will reconsider the movement to expel your two members, which if done would make the Royal Society of New Zealand it is a laughing stock already. As it happens, the Society has already gone some way towards making itself a laughing stock even before the question of a disciplinary investigation arose. For reasons best known to itself, it felt moved to respond to the listener letter with a public statement posted on its website in July. The recent suggestion by a group of University of Auckland academics that Mataranga Maori is not a valid truth is utterly rejected by the Royal Society. The Society strongly upholds the value of Mataranga Maori and rejects the narrow and outmoded definition of science." So you're going to put in a fight for creationism, are you, Royal Society? And you're now calling science an outmoded, narrow definition. That's disgusting. It deeply regrets the harm such a misguided view can cause. For the nation's premier academy for the sciences and humanities, this was an embarrassingly sloppy statement. The professors had never argued Mataranga Maori was not a valid truth, whatever that means. They simply said it wasn't science and didn't belong in the science curriculum. Teach it somewhere else, social studies or something. Furthermore, the professors never outlined a definition of science in their letter, although it possibly could have said to have implied one. And extraordinarily, the Society didn't actually argue in its response that Mataranga Maori is scientific, which was the principal point of the listener letter. They're just too woke. All of these organisations in New Zealand, they're just jumping on the bandwagon. To add insult to injury, the Society left its confused and condemnatory statement on its website for several weeks after it had begun its investigation in November. How it managed it could conduct a fair inquiry into the complaints made against the professors when it had nailed its colours so firmly and publicly to the mast so early in the stoush and left them there for the best part of 5 months. It's difficult to comprehend. So you're going to do an independent investigation, but on your website you've already condemned those people. Then 3 of the 5 complainants withdrew their complaints when they were told their identities would have to be revealed. The contrast between the courage of the professors making a public stand on principle at great risk to their reputations and accusers hoping to hide behind the society's skirts to preserve theirs was stark. That's the thing about all these left-wingers, man. They don't want to out themselves. They just want to kind of remain anonymous and then just pile on top of someone else, right? You can imagine what these people went through that originally made the letter. It must have been really a nervous time for them to make it, because they know what the backlash was going to be. But as soon as these people thought, oh no, my name's going to be mentioned now, I'm just going to withdraw my complaint. That's absolutely disgusting as well. Two of the panelists set to adjudicate on the complaints were obliged to step down when it was pointed out that they were among more than 2,000 academics who had signed an open letter criticising the professor's letter. They were put onto the panelists to adjudicate, and they should have said that, oh, I actually signed the letter that opposed them. We have to assume that these academics saw nothing prejudicial in judging complaints about the professor's letter after having already publicly joined in condemning it. It's pretty safe to bet that these two rejected panelists will not be putting their names up in any public anytime soon to acknowledge their conflicted stance on any more of the anonymous accusers they're likely to. The Royal Society's ghetto jail card was found in clause 6.4 of the complaints procedures on the grounds that the complaint is not amenable to resolution, including by reason of its demanding an open-ended evaluation, blah blah blah. So they got a get out of jail free card, basically. Strangely, the Society didn't think it was too hard to form a quick and ready opinion on contentious expert opinion amongst researchers and scholars in the professor's letter in July, when it roundly rejected their views. Back then, of course, the Royal Society no doubt figured it was firmly on the side of the angels. After all, the voices raised against the professors in the wake of their letter included Vice-Chancellor of Auckland University, Dawn Freshwater, the New Zealand Association of Scientists, and the Tertiary Education Unit, as well as prominent COVID so-called health experts, Susie Wiles and Sean Dr. Death Hendy. Those two I can't stand at all. Living in their silver-lined academic careers, telling the rest of New Zealand what to do, while they never have to face wondering where their next paycheck is coming from because they're all on the public teat. I just do not like those two people at all. Backed by the signatures of more than 2,000 academics. Unfortunately for the Society, that cosy illusion was blown clear out of the water by the lineup of scientists, international heavyweights, who pitched in publicly with a mixture of scorn, incredulity, and outrage. Perhaps the saddest joke of all, however, was the statement by the Society CEO Paul Atkins, posted in mid-December after having acknowledged the high level of local and international comment on the matters. He wrote without a trace of irony, "The Royal Society remains committed to supporting science and the principles of freedom of speech." How can that guy say that when what you were trying to do is shut down the freedom of speech of these 7 scientists, and you weren't supporting scientists, you were supporting anti-science, because that's what a lot of muttering and Maori is. Oh, what a gold article. Graham Adams, freelance editor and journalist. That is brilliant. That is absolute gold. I really enjoyed reading it, and I hope you enjoyed listening to it and also my comments on it. Anyway, that's the end of the article. We're just a laughing stock here in New Zealand. Everything is woke. Everyone's too scared to say anything. And until we can get rid of this woke left-wing Labour government, things aren't probably going to get any better either. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, you're welcome to give it a thumbs down. If you have any comments to make, please make them in the comment section. Love to read them. And if you like my content, please subscribe as well. And I'll catch you hopefully in the next one.